Hey, it's Eric with Chasing the Sun. I wanted to put together this quick video to give you a breakdown of my 2016 BMW R1200RS. I'll give you the overall impression after a 2,000-kilometer ride on it, the pros and cons, and whether I recommend it as a sport touring bike or not. Let's get with it. All right, so I have here the BMW R1200RS, and that was made between 2015 to 2018. And they started with this new generation back in 2015. This is a 2016 model. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know that I don't specialize in motorcycles, but I do travel a lot with motorcycles. And this motorcycle here, I specifically bought for more sport touring and with a passenger, my wife. So I wanted to put together this video to give you my impressions of it after a 2,000-kilometer ride from Los Angeles, the southern area, all the way to Arizona. So what I want to do in this video is to cover the specs and the equipments, give you my pros and cons on this bike based on a sport touring type of ride that I'd like to do, and also just end off with a overall conclusion so that you can judge if it's for you or not. Now let's jump into general specs of this bike. It's 1170cc boxer flat twin. BMW is famous for this engine. I haven't had a BMW before. I've had pretty much every other brand except a BMW because I've heard some horror stories about durability and everything, but when you dive into research of BMW, this engine is phenomenal and it's bulletproof. Everyone speaks of it that way. So far, I'm loving the engine. This bike puts out 125 horsepower and 92 foot-pounds of torque. It's 519 pounds wet. The weight on it is surprisingly not noticeable. It's 520 pounds, but really because it's all down low, it's so easy to maneuver and to move around. So that's what I really like about it. It has a 18-liter tank, which is 4.7 gallons for my American friends. The consumption is rated at 24.4 kilometers per liter, or if you flip it around, it's 4.1 liters per 100 kilometers. For my American friends, that's 57.3 miles per gallon. Now, on the computer, there's actually a consumption that they rate the average consumption, and although it says it's rated at 4.7, but in reality my computer shows 5.6 liters per 100 kilometers in my 2,000-kilometer trip that I just made. This bike is interesting because it comes with 4 seat options from BMW. When you buy it, you have to tell them which one you like. There's the low, which is 29.9 inches, which is what this bike has, and then there's the standard, which is 31.1 inches. And then there's a high seat, which is 32.3, and there's a sport seat, which is 33.1, so you can be really perched over if you choose to. Now for the seat height, although this is the lowest, I actually wish that it was 1 inch higher. With this bike, there's heli bars which raises it by 1 inch and brings it forward by 1 inch. So with that, I felt that the seat should really come up 1 inch to match that. And I felt that riding position was a little bit better. Okay, let's talk about the features and equipment that I got with this bike. It has a adjustable windscreen, not motorized, but it's a manual adjustment. It was pretty easy to do even at speeds, maybe not highway speeds. And the wind coverage for me was great. I think if you're a larger guy, maybe that you might feel a bit more buffeting, but at the highest position, I was completely okay. And even with the additional windscreen that I added on, that's even better. It has keyless drive, which basically you don't need to stick a key in. As long as it's within your body and you're close to the vehicle, then it will start up. It also has the heated grips, which is really nice for the cooler climates. There's 2 settings on there. Now this one also has a Gear Shift Assist Pro, which is basically the quick shift up and down. Really convenient, really nice. And it has the rider modes. By default, it comes with 2 rider modes. This one has the dynamic package on there, which gives you 2 more rider modes. One is the dynamic mode and one is a user customizable one. So those are nice. I find myself, I like to ride a little bit sportier and more spirit, so I use the dynamic mode a lot. The other 2 modes are road and rain. Okay, let's talk about the options that are available for the R1200RS, which I didn't get with this bike. The first one is the dynamic adjustment for the suspension, electronic adjustment basically on the fly. I think that would have been really nice, especially if you have a passenger. You can adjust the suspension of it and how tight or how soft you want it. The other one is the cruise control, and that I also wish I had, but it's not on this bike. really good for highways, long stretches of highways where you just want to rest your wrist a little bit. GPS, you can have that with the BMW GPS, which actually uses Garmin. And then also you can have the BMW bags. Now this one I put GV on there, but if it was the BMW bags, then you can actually use your keyless ride with it, which I think is a good feature. Because one thing I didn't like is that I had to keep on digging for my keys. Although the bike is keyless, I still need to dig for my keys to get to the bags because they're GV. Okay, now let's talk about the pros and cons here. After 2,000 kilometers on this bike, I can really get a good feel for it. The things I like about it is the handling. The handling on this machine is just amazing. I think it's due to the Boxer engine where it's all down low, but whatever I threw at it, and we went through some tight twisties in the LA mountains, sweepers, whatever I throw at it, it just handles beautifully. And it's steady. It's just so stable in the turns that it's unshakable. Whether that's due to the chassis or the weight down low, whatever that is, it's a beautiful handling bike, and I love that. The other thing I really like is the throttle response and the power band. A lot of torque down low and mid-end really gives it a nice power band that I found that no matter what gear I was in, I had power there when I needed, which gives you a lot of confidence, especially if you're in a tight corner and you may have shifted wrong or put yourself in the wrong gear. It just corrects. So it just gives you that confidence as a rider to really push it if you needed to. I'd say the weight is an advantage. I really like that. Although it's 520 pounds, it's heavier than my Aprilia Tuono, for instance, but it handles beautifully. You don't feel the weight because it's all down low. So I like that. Whether if it's stopped or in the corners, it's just so flickable. So I really like that. And then also the windscreen. The wind protection is decent. Compared to my Aprilia Tuono RR, the 1100 V4, it hardly has any windscreen, and I did put in an aftermarket larger windscreen, but you still feel all of that, and it's due to it being a naked bike, right? So I get it. But this one, sport touring, I think it's perfect for my size, 5'6". The wind protection is great. Okay, so now let's look at a few kind of gripes I would have with it. Not many. The brake I found was a little bit soft compared to my Tuono, compared to the K1300S. You'll see that review where I did a comparison between the K1300S and a Aprilia Capanord. This was a little bit softer. Not horribly bad, but when you ride those two, you notice that those ones have more bite. So yeah, the brakes are a little bit soft. They are Brembo brakes. I wish it was a little bit harder. The other thing that I have about it is the quick shift from 1 to 2 is a little bit clunky. So I haven't been doing much quick shifting unless it's the higher gears. Now the final gripe that I would have with it, which is an interesting one, is the keyless drive. It's a great idea, but because I have the GV system, what I found is I still had to keep on digging for my keys to open the case. Of course, if you went with BMW gear for everything, you probably won't have that problem. Now, if you did swap bikes on a ride with your buddies, that's also something else that you have to remember to give them the keys. When I was first looking for a motorcycle, I needed something that was sporty, that was good for a long distance, and that was also able to take a passenger comfortably. I came from a 2016 Goldwing, and my wife loved that vehicle. It's so comfortable, but of course it's not sporty, especially in the twisties. So I was really looking for that balance where it's comfortable for me, comfortable for a passenger, and can give me that sporty ride. Now the bikes that I was comparing was the FJR 1300, the R1200RT, which is a brother of this vehicle, just the more touring version, bigger windscreens, more electronics, more creature comfort. I was also looking at the Tracer 900 GT and the KTM Super Duke 1290. In the end, I decided on this for a few reasons. I ruled out the Tracer because I wanted a shaft drive. I wanted something very low maintenance. I wanted something very durable. So then that gets rid of the Tracer. Now I have the FJR, the RT, and the RS, which is this bike. And the FJR was very close, but I love the handling of this vehicle compared to the FJR. The weight is distributed down on the bottom and it just flicks like there's nothing. So the real debate for me then was, do I want to take the creature comfort of the RT or the sportiness of the RS? In the end, I decided on the RS because my wife won't be with me all the time on all my rides, so I still want something a little bit sportier. And the wind protection on this was good enough for me. I'm gonna see how it is for my wife as a passenger, and I'll make another video focused solely on this bike in relation to comfort and the wind protection of a passenger. Okay, so my overall impression of this bike after 2,000 kilometers on a really technical kind of riding that we did through the LA mountains and all that. It had a good mixture of twisties and sweepers and straight highway. I love this bike. I'm actually thoroughly surprised. Like I said, haven't owned a BMW before. I've owned pretty much all other brands of motorcycle, but this is my first BMW and I was a little bit hesitant. But this is a peach to ride. It's just perfect. I think the R engine of the BMW is excellent. It handles really nicely. It's light, it's flickable. There's so many great things about this. And also, if you like your electronics, BMW is probably the leader in that. So those are great. The wind protection has been great. I'll do a separate review with the passenger and get their feeling on what that wind protection is like if there's a passenger. I also did a similar ride, about 2,000 kilometers from LA to Palm Springs on a 2014 R1200RT. So it's very similar to this. Now that one had a bit more creature comfort, but less flickable and a little bit heavier. I could feel the difference. Compared to an FJR, I have a friend who has a 2016 FJR and I took that out for a ride. The FJR is a little bit more top heavy. This definitely is bottom and you don't feel the weight. Plus also more torque and it feels like it's got more horsepower. I'm not sure if it is. I'll look up the FJR horsepower and put that on there. But overall, handles much better than the FJR, so I like that. And compared to my Hyperstrada, which I had before, the touring version and the Aprilia Capanord, it's not as comfortable because those ones are more upright, but I love how this handles in the corner. So if you're a rider looking for a sportier but touring bike, definitely consider this. I think it should be high up on your list. Yeah, so I hope you like this video and I hope it benefits you to kind of understand what this bike's like if you're looking for one in the market, whether new or used.